Time now for us to serve you the news review, and we're joined by Dr. Kwame Asah-Asante. He is a political scientist and director of the Center for European Studies at the University of Ghana. I'll be bringing him into the conversation shortly. But as we all know, well, Endpoint Homeopathic Clinic helping us to bring you this conversation, this segment, every morning on the AM show. If you're a man, they're offering you prostate screening for free. If you've never checked out what your prostate is, feeling like the state of it, you are treading on very dangerous ground. It could take you by surprise. It could actually take your life if some things go to a certain extent. Then there is your fertility as a woman. Of course, there's male fertility as well. But as a woman, do you know what your fertility status is like? I always say that, scientifically proven, most women have something going on in terms of fibroids and other things that are normal, but they could get out of hand. And then that is where it becomes problematic. So do you know your fertility status? If you don't, it's just disaster in the waiting. At least if you know, then you know what the status is, and you can be sure that you are in tip-top shape. And that is why I'm proffering for you this morning Endpoint Homeopathic Clinic. What they're offering you, if you're a man, is prostate screening for free. If you're a woman, fertility screening for free. Here's where you can find them. Here in Accra, they're at Spintex opposite the Shell signboard. In Kumasi, Kronum Abwehia behind the Angel Educational Complex. There's Takrade Anaji State Tema Community 22, Techiman Hanswa, and Esiamanzima. Their call lines 0244 867 068 or 0274 234 321. Endpoint Homeopathic Clinic, the end to chronic disease. But just the start of the news review, and I'd like to pose this question before I proceed to my guest. Did your lights go off at some point yesterday? And if they did, when were they restored, right? When were your lights, or when was the light restored? I hear in places like Tantra Hill, lights went off in Parakou, the Parakou Estates area, Spintex, the lights were off, and in many other places. And what got many people upset was that it was like a disco light thing, on, off, and then it will go off for quite a while. We saw something about WAPCO and its supply and everything. But let me know. Just shoot us a message via the live stream. Join News on Facebook. Let's know whether your lights were on or off yesterday. On that note, let me bring in Dr. Kwame Asah-Asante. Good morning, Doc. Happy New Year to you.
Good morning, Ben. To see you. Many happy returns. Yes, we are happy to be back on this business of ours. Yeah.
Right, in this business of ours. I like the way you put it. If you papa, all right. So in Chi, what he's basically said, I asked him in a year's time, what can we expect? And he said we would have voted and in peace and would be progressing from there. Were your lights on throughout yesterday? I know you were probably not at home throughout, but wherever you were, and did you get information that the lights had gone off or stayed on at home?
Unfortunately, I couldn't. I was in school.
Okay.
But I came back after 9 p.m. and the lights were on.
Okay.
But some days ago, they were off throughout the night, some hours within the night, because I was doing some piece of work. But it returned in a few hours' time.
I see. All right, so
I couldn't check.
Since this is our first engagement in the year, I'd like to find out from you, what do you make of last year? We've spoken about everything from the economy to sanitation to education. Today we're contemplating agriculture and health later on the show. But how do you assess this government's performance in 2023 from where you sit? You can give a score on 1 to 10, but just break it down for us. How did you find 2023? What are your expectations, Doc, in 2024? In a maximum of 2 minutes, if you can put that together.
2023, very difficult. Difficult in the sense that we saw the financial problems hitting hard at the ordinary man. Not only that, even extended to the middle class and then the top class. Yeah, you saw, people picketing near the premises of the finance ministry and the rest of them. We also saw up funds issue of Parliament and all the problems in there, allegation of bribery in there, a whole lot. But I believe that in all this, there is something that is clear, that one, our economy has been mismanaged. And this is how that defines how far we have come in terms of our relationship with the IMF one more time. It is unfortunate because the experience with IMF has always been bitter and not a preferred option. But hey, if you have a government that will not listen and continue to borrow in such a fashion that you have no choice than to go there, then it becomes something worrying. I'm also worried about the fact that we have a government that looks unconcerned whilst our water bodies are being destroyed, and all the problems associated with it. Today, scientific research from KNUST tell us that a lot of our river bodies have been polluted, and that have given rise to a number of health issues, including kidney diseases and the rest of them. It's a threat, and I'm surprised that this country is taking it lightly. It's a big threat. It's a big threat. When we saw the shutdown of the renal section of Kolibu, then we realized that we are in okra soup. But it appears to me that we don't care a hoot about this. The issue of vote buying in our elections, particularly within the MPP, as we saw, doling out of money and the rest of them under the guise that we are just paying transport and the rest of them. Very, very unfortunate. But if you put all in all, we will say that yes, we as a society, we have also contributed our quota to this demise that we are seeing. Because sometimes we sit down as if there is nothing at stake. We look unconcerned. But going forward, I believe that we have to up our game and do what is expected of us, to be vigilant at all times. And don't hesitate to criticize a government and suggest ways forward. I think that is the way to go. So in summary, I think there were pluses, there were minuses. But hey, we look for better times within this year.
Thank you so much for those thoughts shared. Of course, if you remain silent, then you can be no more than, or nothing less than, a collaborator. It is said that in times when things are bad, or I don't want to use evil from the original quote, when times are bad, it is not the failure to act of good people, it is their silence. When you keep quiet, when the wrong things are happening, then of course you cannot be anything else but a collaborator in the wrongdoing. Let's get into the newspapers now, and the Daily Graphic headlines: Economy as election beckons, demand solutions from parties, Presby moderator to citizenry. I like the fact that now some of the churches are also, because some of them have been woefully silent. And I always say that if you've been silent in the past and you're silent now, fine. But if you've been vociferous in the past, and all of a sudden you go mute, it becomes problematic, because then people start to question where you're coming from. There's also redeploy military to support Galamsey fight in forest reserves. Forestry Commission says so. And yes, in some places recently we heard of a story where in one of these reserves, people have started literally mining. And it's not that it had gone on for about 3 months. It wasn't without the knowledge of the Forestry Commission. People knew. They waited until stories were done and all of that before, well, they moved in and did a few things. After the person had already started damaging our environment left, right, and center. I say for this country, only God, only God. Digital devices, necessity for fourth industrial revolution. Dr. Bawumia says so. Adopt civil society approach to constitutional reforms. Professor Okwe says so. And then the voice of the people unveiled, the new force. Before I go on, let me just ask you, this whole bit about the new force. I'm sure, I don't know whether you followed, when Patrice Lumumba, PLO Lumumba, Julius Malema, I didn't see Julius Malema there, but Dr. Arikana and Pete Obi were meant to speak at the Independence Square, and they were prevented from doing so, ostensibly because while they had been granted permission, there were some other government events that would happen there. That government event never happened anyway. But what do you think of what happened that day on Constitution Day? I am not in support of any grouping or any movement or whatever, but I feel on a day when we celebrated the Constitution itself was bastardized, breached. People have freedom of, movement, freedom to congregate, to mass up, freedom of assembly. What is your quick take on that before I get into the other stories?
Yes, I must say that I did not follow the whole event, but I picked bits and pieces from the media space. But I'm so surprised that, what happened. One, I want to know from the national security people that if there is any law that the people have breached, they should let us know. Yes, if it's wrong for them to form an association or a group like that, they should let us know. Because I am a student of democracy, and I believe that this game of democracy is played with rules that govern the conduct of people. So if there is a breach, obviously there's a sanction, and they are law enforcement agency. They should be able to quick and address this. Other than that, you ask yourself, why were they prevented from doing what they were doing? Right? Is it the case that our, the government is very much afraid of the so-called third force? You and I know that third force will not win any election in this country. It is clear from the literature, unless, of course, people are not aware of that in the literature. Because in Ghana, political party systems are very strong. So being a third force, you are not going to win election within the shortest possible time. Why? Because there are two factors here. Parties are strong, and two, the electoral system that we have in this country does not permit a force to survive, right? Because we use the simple majority system, first past the post system. So whoever wins the election can win with even one vote, and that's the end. And that doesn't support the effort of a third force. For third force, then you must move into what? Proportional representation, where you need a certain portion to be able to win. So at best, you form a coalition government that limits the powers of what? Dominant parties and the rest of them. Evidence abound in, Germany, Israel, Belgium, and the rest of them. So why would the government be afraid of a third force? I mean, once you begin to have that type of thinking, then it tells me that you are afraid of the elections ahead. I mean, because for me, there are a lot of things that you can allow it to pass relative to a third force, right? Or from all that I've said, you should not be scared of a third force. But the real issue is that they also can be what? Kingmakers. When they perform well with the support of other parties, they will be able to push election to a second round. We have seen from research that if you put all the efforts of political parties from 1992, the smaller ones I'm talking about, to 2020, the average have not gone beyond 4%. So why worried about a third force? All right, they should. And so I was so surprised that. And then the issue about what foreigners who are coming to speak here on that forum and all that, those are things I find that
But the likes of PLO Lumumba has been in Ghana so many times for speaking events. He's been in Ghana so many times.
Ben, you let us consider, for the purposes of this conversation, that he's even coming for the first time. Is it new? And is it something that is not allowed in this country? We saw when the MPP elected Dr. Baumia at the stadium, we saw invitation extended to what I think Labour Party representative who came and also gave a speech. I'm sure you saw that. I think Labour or Conservative Party representative was there. I mean, is it wrong? It's normal. So after all, at the end of the day, it is the people of this country that vote. It's not an outsider who come with all manner of fine speeches and the rest of them.
Right.
So if you are afraid of, all these people or all these type of structures, then I'm likely to think that you are afraid of the elections ahead of you, because all these things should not worry you. If you are focused, if you have really honored your promises, if you have always served your people well, you should not be afraid of this. So, going forward, we should look at these things and look at them carefully, and in order not to panic in all these things and allow the forces of democracy to work.
All right, I have some messages coming through because I asked about the light situation. Awal, you say, Charlie, modern city hotel self for Tamale get light off, if not for standby generator like Phyla Cookathon 10 beans. That's what Awal says. He says, even at the Modern City Hotel, where we know Chef Phyla is organizing her cookathon, that if not for standby generators, her cookathon would have been affected. So the lights went off in Tamale as well. Nana Kweku says, Dumso has become normal in my area, and even as at now, our light is off. Nana Kweku, I'd like to know which area are you in, just so we can know and also help by putting the word out. Charles Mensah says, at Ashaiman, lights went on and off during the day, and in the evening went off around 4 p.m. and only returned this morning at 6 a.m. This occurrence has been happening for the past 4 months, especially between Atadeka and Katamanso Ashaiman. Okay. Thank you for sharing those messages. As you share them, we put them out, and hopefully you can get some relief as well. Other stories to look at. So let's start with economy as election beckons. Demand solutions from parties. Presby moderator to citizenry. The moderator of the Presbyterian Church of Ghana, Right Reverend Dr. Abraham Nana Opare Kwache, has asked Ghanaians to demand of political parties how they will transform the economy ahead of this year's general election. He said the transformation and improvement of the economy should be the main focus of the election, given the difficulties of the times. Quoting him, he says, "So for me, the economy is important and it is my number one thing. We should not wait for them to come and tell us. We should force the political parties to talk to us about what differently they can do to transform and improve the economy. We mustn't allow them to set our agenda for us, else it would be like you're going to write an exam, you're setting your own question, you're answering it, and then marking it." Right Reverend Dr. Opare Kwache told the Daily Graphic in an exclusive interview. He also said, for instance, the Electoral Commission should endeavor to conduct a free, fair, and transparent elections. He said, as much as Ghanaians were nursing hope in 2024, quote, "We want to encourage all the stakeholders in the elections to work towards peace." So that is the first story. I'll then do the one on page 13 and add to that. Adopt civil society approach to constitutional reforms. Professor Okwe says so. A former Speaker of Parliament, Professor Aaron Michael Quay, has proposed that civil society organizations must be allowed to lead the process of initiating constitutional reforms. He explained that the civil society approach would bring about broader consultations and introduce techniques such as peace building and the reform processes for effective implementation of reports on constitutional reforms. Professor Quay, who is also a distinguished scholar of the Institute of Economic Affairs, a policy think tank in the country, was speaking in an interview with the Daily Graphic in Accra ahead of last Sunday's commemoration of the Constitution Day. Interestingly, I've heard, for example, former President John Mahama talk about the fact that some things definitely ought to change in the 1992 Constitution, referencing the 2010 Commission set up to review the Constitutional Review Commission and the white paper and how it has gathered dust. But then, of course, you can also ask, he was in power at the time. Why did he not do anything about it? Well, better late than never if he has that thinking. But then this current administration, you hear the Attorney General say that, in fact, it was in yesterday's papers that a general overhaul of the Constitution is not on the cards. It's not the best way to go. But some people insist. And me, one thing that definitely must go. We have a presidency that is too powerful, appointing everybody and anybody. It's a recipe for disaster, and we see it in the corruption and everything going on. I don't know what your take is on these two matters. Demand solutions from parties, don't let them set the agenda. We must set the agenda, but will they listen? And secondly, constitutional reforms. What is your take, Doc?
I'll start with the moderator. Good speech by the moderator, but I'll urge the moderator that after this, we want to hear him more on issues of national interest. Because more often than not, we hear people who are close to election. After election, when real governance starts, we don't hear their voices anymore. And it allows society to degenerate. People of his standing are very important when we are governing a society because they have a lot of following. So we expect him to continue to support us and don't shy away, should not shy away from criticisms that will support the effort at ensuring a solid democracy in this country. If you look at the economy, touch on the economy, and that the economy, we should make sure that all the political actors will tell us how to make it right and how to ensure that we live better lives ahead of election and the rest of them. Good thing, because if you look at research, the economy is always number one priority of the voter since time immemorial. So it's not going to change. We are going to ask all the difficult questions, and we expect the political parties to give us the right answers. And I'll urge Ghanaians to listen with rapt attention when politicians are, proposing ideas and offering solutions to a problem. We should be, you and I who are in that space, and we can help them to understand the issue, help them. And that if there is a need to throw a party out of power through election, why not? If there's a need to welcome opposition into the system, they have better ideas, why not? If there's a need to maintain a government which has done so well, why not? So we have a role as what groups and individuals who have what it takes to be able.
Hello, Doc. Hello, Dr. Kwame Asasante. Okay, we have a challenge with the connection. We'll try to get him back and let him continue with his thoughts on those. But let's quickly hit the international front and say goodbye to the Daily Graphic newspaper. Sierra Leone charges 27 soldiers over foiled coup attempt. That story is on page 5. A court in Sierra Leone has charged 27 soldiers with multiple offenses over an alleged coup attempt. The charges include mutiny, failure to suppress mutiny, murder, aiding the enemy, communicating with the enemy, and other relevant offenses, the Defense Ministry said in a statement. Doc, I hear you just a sec. Last November, gunmen broke into a military armory and several prisons in Freetown, freeing almost 2,000 inmates. Doc, yes, I can hear you now. Please go ahead.
So, still on the moderator's comment about EC. Yeah, the EC has an important role to perform, making sure that they conduct the election and we have nothing but free and fair election. So any problem that are likely to be created by the EC by virtue of the work that they do, they should be able to think about it again. People have expressed concern about the fact that they are not going to allow the use of indelible ink. They should look at it again. I'm not sure the proposal sits well with the well-meaning Ghanaians of this country. The issue of not allowing, any other document except the Ghana card is also must be looked at again, so as to encourage everybody who the law says is qualified to vote and be voted for. Above all, I expect the EC to do away the things that are associated with normally its work. You saw last election where the EC announced results, and then in no time comes out with what, another set of results and all that. That type of rejoinder, we don't want that because it creates all manner of problems. And all that I'm saying that the EC should be able to put its house in order during the elections and beyond. Peace building or peace and stability is important. We need that, and we want to involve all the stakeholders so as to ensure that this election produces nothing but what? Free and fair outcome, right, and in an atmosphere of peace. Civil society and constitutional reforms by my own good professor, Professor Michael Quay, is a welcoming news. But the Constitution, people have said so many things that we don't have to, temper with it. We have to tread cautiously and all that. And that is why I support the Okoye's call that put the stakeholders together. They have what it takes to be able to look at all these things. And that at the end of the day, they will be able to know where to reform, where to amend, and where to make changes so that they reflect the changing circumstances of the time. I think that is a way to go.
I was on the international front talking about Sierra Leone charging 27 soldiers over a foiled coup attempt, but also on the international front, Macron picks Attal, 34, as France's youngest prime minister at 34 in Ghana. What would you be doing? Yes, we've had a few people in there, the Kojo Nkrumahs, the Samukujetwa Blackwares, the former deputy information minister and communications minister as well. Oh, I forget his name, with the NDC. I've forgotten his name. And a few other young people. Beyond that, Zilch, yes, Kwachiofosu, Felix Kwachiofosu, among others. But if you look at it, but you see the other side, Doc, is what you find in other cases. For example, in Nigeria, where the minister for something and poverty, so the poverty minister, is now being accused. The first person to be investigated under the Tinubu regime for supposedly some £500,000 that were sent into a private account when they should have been sent into a government account and all of that. She's 37, the youngest minister on his cabinet. And that also creates problems because I feel sometimes that takes away from the shine of what young people can do. And then when young people get the opportunity, you could say they mess it up sometimes. Not all the time, but sometimes.
It shouldn't be a difficult thing because, Ben, we saw the late Dr. Jones Uforata. I think he was about 25 years when he was a deputy minister. Fantastic young man.
John Ajekum Kufuor himself under Buzia was 20-something, if I'm not mistaken.
Yes. So it's normal. We don't need it's not necessarily the issue of age or gray hair in your head. No, it is about what ideas and what the all that you need to be able to do your work. Otherwise, we will say that we only require Methuselahs to run the affairs of this state. I mean, wisdom does not reside in gray hair alone. It resides in even people without hair and all that. So all that I'm saying is that we need the best brains. It doesn't matter who is that person. He can be a toddler, a teenager, or whatever, provided he has what it takes. Why not?
Right. Landmark presidential immunity case heard in court. It has to do with Donald Trump and the accusation that he conspired to overturn the 2020 election and committed fraud to stay in office. His lawyers argue that the office of the White House shields him from his 2020 election fraud charges. Well, we'll leave that to the Americans. Blinken carries Arab message to Israel. Let's wrap quickly with some interesting stories. I don't know whether you followed the BBC bit on Prophet TB Joshua, who has now, he's passed, but a BBC synagogue church tango over TB Joshua. There have been accusations, women claiming this and that. I've not gone into the full thrust of things. I've always had my issues with some people in these religious circles, but I am nobody. I'm not going to judge anybody. But at the same time, I also feel post the fact, with the person not around to defend himself, it's a bit murky in there, but hey, it is what it is. Government supports Digital Village project. Baumia unveils campaign focus. What has he been saying? At the forefront of his priorities is a strong emphasis on digitization and the use of technology to promote inclusive economic growth. He emphasized that his commitment to driving digitization would serve as a cornerstone for achieving success in his campaign. He highlighted the transformative potential of technology and bolstering economic opportunities for all segments of society, emphasizing its role in fostering greater inclusion and accessibility. I guess it is digitization all the way for Baumia. Ghanaian Times, ex-President Mahama recommits to reviewing constitution if elected, like I've already mentioned, and 18 MPP MPs bow out of parliament. The final paper I'll look at, the Daily Searchlight. JM to tour Volta Ashanti regions on the Building the Ghana We Want tour. And then SML $1 billion deal is a scam. Bust source says so. You know of the SML deal. Final thoughts, Doc, and we can wrap.
I think the digitization issue by the vice president is not new. What we expect the vice president as a head of the economic management team is to be able to support the effort of government very well so that this economy remains sound now to the election and beyond. That is more important. Yes, when the economy is sound, then you can introduce all manner of technology and all that. After all, the two work hand in hand, but you can't put emphasis on digitization alone whilst you leave the real economic stuff. I think the vice president knows more than I do. So he will look at that. 18 MPs bow out of parliament.
Yeah.
Yes.
Samuel Atachia, Kennedy Japan, the likes of the majority leader, all of them bowing out of parliament, opting out.
Yeah. Sometimes
yeah.
In parliamentary business, this is how it is. There is always entry and exit. And sometimes you lose giants in parliament. It's painful because then it affects the quality of debate and parliamentary work. There's no doubt about that. But the good news about this, which addresses that same problem, is that those who come in will in no time learn the ropes and live up to expectation. We should not deceive ourselves into believing that there are people that we can dispense of their services and want to remain in parliament forever. Sometimes you hear from political parties that, the attrition rate is too high and all that. I disagree, and I disagree vehemently. Because those who went to parliament and made their day and then, performed so well to the admiration of many is the fact that they were able to do that based on the fact that people give them the opportunity to go there and be tested and they prove their mettle. Right. So once we lose them, others who will come and fill the void. It is not as if that they are people that we cannot dispense of their services. What about even if we lose them? Touch wood, we lose them in life. Are we going to bring their goods to come and administer in parliament? There is always, society always create opportunity for new generation to step into the shoes of the old ones and then live up to expectation. So let us accept that and then move on. But we wish them a good life and we thank them for all the support they've rendered to parliament. I believe that outside parliament, they will continue to be useful and help us to engage and build a better society for ourselves.
Thank you, Doc. As always, you make our Wednesdays, wunderbar Wednesdays, like the Germans would say, wonderful. Thank you so much for joining the conversation. Political scientist and director of the Center for European Studies at the University of Ghana, Dr. Kwame Asah-Asante, interacting with us there. A few more messages. Energy Booster says some parts of Accra Newtown went dark around 7 a.m. and light was restored at dawn around 5 a.m. David Ajika says, yesterday by 9 p.m. the lights went off and were restored by 1 a.m. in Pandai. And there's also King Harrison. You allude to something we did in the news, the story about the goat rearing. And you say, good morning, please, regarding the news of the rearing of goats at Brekum, I want to know if the consumption is also banned in the town. If not, it will be interesting to see them consume meat, which is said to be a bad omen in their own land. King Harrison, you are being naughty here. Anyway, a very good morning to Nana Joabena. You know yourself. A very good morning to you. I wish you a speedy recovery. Stay well. God be with you. Fantastic. Nana Joabena. I see your head getting swollen already. Anyway, Endpoint Homeopathic Clinic helping us bring you this segment. They're offering prostate screening for free, fertility screening for free. That is if you're a woman. And you can reach them at any of their branches. Here in Accra, at Spintex, opposite the Shell signboard. Kumasi, Kronomabwe here behind the Angel Educational Complex. The Stakradi Anaji State Tema Community 22, Techiman Hanswa, and the Siamanzima. Their call lines 0244 867 068 or 0274 234 321. Endpoint Homeopathic Clinic, the end to chronic disease. Yesterday, sad news for Chelsea. I wish Dennis were here for me to tease him. They went down to Middlesbrough. There's more on that and in sports right up next on the AM Show.